The wind carried the faint scent of rain and wilted flowers as Ethan Ward stepped through the rusted gates of St. Hollow Cemetery. It had been 15 years since he last saw this place, 15 years since he swore never to return. But there he was, standing beneath a bruised sky, clutching the old house keys that still bore his family's name. The town hadn't changed much. The same crooked streetlights, the same fog that rolled in from the river. The same quiet that wasn't peaceful, just heavy, like the earth itself was holding its breath. Ethan told himself he only came back to sell the house, to close the chapter. But the truth was heavier. Something had been calling him back for years, a pull he couldn't name. He walked along the overgrown path between the gravestones, brushing his hand along cracked marble and faded names. He didn't know why he stopped, maybe instinct, maybe chance, but his eyes caught on one stone half buried in moss. It was newer than the others. Polished. Almost cared for. He crouched to brush away the leaves. Ethan Ward. His name. His date of birth. And below it, a death date, carved cleanly into the stone. October 28, 2025. Tomorrow. For a long moment, he couldn't move. His throat went dry. Someone's idea of a sick joke, he thought. But the letters were old, weathered, not freshly cut. The soil at the base was cracked with age. This grave had been here for years. Lightning flickered behind the trees, briefly illuminating the dark expanse of the cemetery. He glanced around. No one. Only the whisper of leaves. He knelt closer, running his fingers across the carved name. The stone was cold, but when his skin met the lettering, something pulsed beneath it. Faint, rhythmic. Like a heartbeat deep in the ground. He jerked his hand back, stumbling slightly. His heart pounded in his ears. He stared again. The name looked different now, almost distorted. The death date seemed to shimmer in the dim light. For a second, he could have sworn the numbers changed. October 29, 2025, the next day. The air thickened. A low hum vibrated beneath his feet. Ethan took a step back, scanning the graves around him, searching for movement. The wind picked up suddenly, swirling dead leaves into a spiral. His coat snapped against his legs as he backed away. He wanted to leave, to run, but his gaze locked back on the tombstone. And that's when he saw it. A faint, fresh smear of dirt across the top, like someone had touched it recently. Or climbed out. Ethan turned toward the gate, every instinct screaming to go. But then a sound stopped him. A voice. So familiar. Ethan. He froze. It wasn't echoing from the wind, it came from beneath the ground. For a second, he thought he imagined it. Then it came again, fainter but clearer, his own voice, whispering his name. The storm broke overhead, and thunder rolled across the valley. Ethan stumbled backward, the rain starting to fall in sheets. And then the pulse came again, one hard, unmistakable beat beneath the tombstone. He turned and ran for the gate. But behind him, from the grave, the earth shifted, just once. As the sky lit up, Ethan glanced back, and saw a faint handprint forming in the wet soil. He didn't look again. Tomorrow, he told himself, he'd come back with answers. He didn't yet realize, tomorrow was the date on the grave. Ethan barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that tombstone again, his name carved into stone, the rain washing over the date that still burned behind his eyelids. October 28, 2025. His date of death. Today. By morning, the storm had passed, but the unease hadn't. He sat at the small kitchen table of his late parents' house, staring at an old newspaper he'd found tucked under the door. The paper was damp, its ink smudged, but the date at the top was clear, October 27, 2025. He glanced at his phone. The screen read October 28, 2025. He frowned. It can't be, he muttered. His phone must have glitched. But when he checked the calendar pinned above the sink, one his mother had marked before she passed, the last circled date was October 26th. The next few days were blank. He grabbed the phone again, scrolling through the settings. The time was right. The clock ticked normally. But the date refused to change, locked in place like it was waiting for something. He tried calling his friend Mark, who lived 2 towns over. The call went straight to voicemail. Static hissed faintly before the tone. Then, faintly under the static, a whisper, "Today's not yours." He dropped the phone. The sound cut out immediately, leaving only the hum of the refrigerator and his heartbeat pounding in his ears. He exhaled sharply, forcing a laugh. "I'm losing it," he whispered. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed him home from the graveyard, something that now lingered between the tick of the clock and the rustle of the curtains. He decided to go back. He needed to see that grave again, to prove it wasn't real. The sun was low when he reached St. Hollow Cemetery. The ground was still wet from last night's storm, slick with mud. The gate creaked open as he stepped through, and the same uneasy silence met him, the kind that felt aware. He walked the same path as before, tracing his steps carefully. But when he reached the place where he'd found the tombstone, it was gone. Ethan froze. The ground was disturbed, but no grave, no stone. Just a rectangle of turned soil, dark and uneven, like something had been lifted. His pulse quickened. He looked around row after row of old graves, each faded, nameless, and untouched. He crouched, touching the wet earth where the tombstone had stood. The ground was cold, unnaturally cold. His fingers brushed something smooth beneath the dirt. He dug lightly and pulled out a piece of stone, about the size of a hand. On it, faintly visible, was part of his own name, Van. His chest tightened. He turned the fragment over, and on the back, carved roughly, were numbers. Not October 28, 2025. October 29, 2025. Tomorrow. He dropped the stone. Lightning cracked in the distance, though the sky was clear. The wind picked up again, carrying with it a faint sound, a heartbeat, slow and steady, rising from the earth. Ethan stumbled back, his breath catching in his throat. He turned to leave, but as he did, something caught his eye, a single white rose lying on the path ahead, fresh and untouched by the mud. A small card was pinned to its stem. He picked it up. In faint handwriting were 3 words, "See you tonight." The world seemed to tilt. His heart pounded as he looked back toward the empty patch of ground. The grave was gone. But someone, or something, clearly remembered him. And night was only a few hours away. The white rose sat on Ethan's kitchen table like a taunt. Its petals hadn't wilted, even after hours. The small note beside it, "See you tonight," kept drawing his eyes, its ink faintly smudged as if written by trembling hands. He hadn't slept. Every sound in the house, the groan of old pipes, the shifting wood, made his skin crawl. It was nearly dawn when he decided to distract himself by cleaning, something he hadn't done since moving back. In the living room, he knelt by his father's old desk, the one that had been locked since the funeral. He'd always assumed it was full of bills and repair receipts, nothing more. But as he wiped the dust away, his fingers brushed a small metal key taped beneath the drawer. He froze. Then, carefully, he peeled it off. The lock clicked open with an echo that seemed too loud for the quiet room. Inside, he found a stack of envelopes, yellowed by time, tied together with a brittle string. Beneath them sat a photograph in a wooden frame, cracked at the corners, its glass smudged. It was a picture of the house, this house, but decades older. The trees outside were smaller, the porch missing its railing. And standing in front of it were 2 people, his father, younger, and a boy who looked exactly like Ethan. Same eyes. Same hair. Same crooked smile. Ethan stared, his breath catching. The back of the photo had a date scrawled in faded pencil, October 29, 1995. Tomorrow's date. 30 years earlier. He felt a chill crawl up his spine. The boy's expression in the photo was eerily blank, too still, almost lifeless. His father's hand rested on the boy's shoulder, but the way he looked into the camera wasn't pride. It was fear. Ethan flipped through the envelopes. Inside each were notes written in his father's careful handwriting. Most were letters addressed to Ethan. But every one of them began the same way. If you're reading this, it means the cycle has started again. His heartbeat quickened as he read on. The letters spoke of the name that returns, the ground that remembers, and a mistake that could not be buried. His father wrote about a boy who appeared every 30 years, always named Ethan, always drawn back to the same house. The last line of the final letter was written in frantic strokes. Do not dig. Do not look beneath the floorboards. The house remembers you, even when you forget yourself. Ethan dropped the letters, his mind spinning. He glanced toward the hallway, the same one that led to the old basement door. For a moment, he thought he saw something move in the reflection of the picture frame. A shadow standing where no one should be. He turned sharply. Nothing. Just the empty hall, dimly lit by the flicker of the kitchen light. He picked up the photo again, staring at the boy's face. The longer he looked, the more wrong it seemed, like the smile was shifting, stretching, mirroring his own expression in real time. Then came a sound. A soft click, like a camera shutter, echoing from somewhere deep inside the house. Ethan froze. The air thickened, the silence humming with a strange static. He turned toward the sound, and realized it came from the basement door. A faint light flickered beneath it, as if someone was standing on the other side, taking pictures in the dark. Ethan took a single step forward. The rose on the table began to wilt. And from the basement came a whisper, faint, childlike, and familiar. Smile for the picture, Ethan. The morning sun did little to erase the unease of the night before. Ethan sat at his kitchen table, staring at the cracked photograph. The boy's eyes still followed him, even in daylight. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faint glow beneath the basement door and heard the whisper, smile for the picture, Ethan. By noon, he decided he needed answers, real ones. The only person who'd lived here long enough to know anything was Mr. Halvorsen, his father's old neighbor. The man had always been friendly in a distant way, the kind who watched everything but spoke little. Ethan crossed the yard, the grass crunching beneath his boots. Mr. Halvorsen was sitting on his porch, staring into the distance with a cigarette between his fingers. When he saw Ethan approach, his expression shifted, polite, but tense. Morning, Ethan said, forcing calm. Do you remember anything about my dad's time here? The old man exhaled smoke slowly. Plenty. But not all of it's worth remembering. Ethan stepped closer. Did something happen here? Something strange? Halvorsen's eyes flicked toward the house, then back to Ethan. You've been hearing things, haven't you? Ethan froze. What do you mean? The old man stubbed out his cigarette. It always starts with the noises. Under the floor. In the walls. Then the dreams come. Ethan's pulse quickened. You're saying you knew? Halvorsen leaned forward. Your father tried to keep you away. When he realized what the house was doing, it was too late. He thought moving out would stop it. His gaze hardened. But you came back. The air grew heavy. Ethan's throat felt dry. Stop what exactly? Halvorsen hesitated, then pulled a small envelope from his coat pocket. It was weathered, edges soft with age. Your father gave me this. Told me to give it to you only if you ever returned. Ethan took it with shaking hands. Inside was a single piece of paper. No words, just a faded photograph. A picture of the backyard at night. And in the corner, near the old maple tree, a figure stood. Small, blurry, unmistakably a child. Ethan's stomach dropped. When was this taken? Halvorsen's voice was barely a whisper. Before the last one disappeared. The last what? Ethan asked, his voice breaking. The old man didn't answer. He just stared at him with hollow eyes. You shouldn't have opened that drawer, he said finally. It starts with curiosity. It always does. Ethan looked back at his house, its windows dark, still watching. Who was the boy in the picture? He asked. Halvorsen hesitated again, then said, Your father buried something in that yard. Said it was the only way to stop him. Ethan's blood ran cold. Stop who? But the old man stood abruptly, trembling as he picked up his cane. Don't dig, Ethan. Whatever you find won't belong to you. He turned and disappeared into his house, the screen door slamming shut behind him. Ethan stood frozen, the photograph fluttering in his hand. The figure near the tree, the child, seemed to blur as sunlight caught it. For a moment, it almost looked like the child was smiling. That night, Ethan couldn't stay inside. The silence was unbearable. He sat on the back porch, staring at the spot beneath the maple tree. The earth looked slightly uneven, as if something had once been dug up, or buried again. Wind rustled through the branches, whispering his name. He stood, heart pounding, and took a hesitant step toward the tree. And then, from somewhere beneath the soil, came a faint, muffled sound. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, followed by a voice he hadn't heard since childhood. "It's cold down here." Ethan didn't remember running. 1 second he was by the tree, the next he was halfway down the gravel path leading to the woods behind the property. His breath came in sharp bursts, the echo of that voice still threading through his mind. "It's cold down here." He stopped only when the air grew still. The woods were quiet, unnaturally so. No birds, no wind, just the faint crunch of leaves beneath his boots. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness in thin, trembling lines. Every instinct told him to go back. But the sound, that voice, had come from the trees now. He could feel it, faint but certain. "Who's there?" he called out. His words vanished into the shadows. A faint laugh answered, soft, childlike. Then silence. His heart lurched. "Who are you?" This time, the voice came closer. "You don't remember me?" Ethan swung the flashlight wildly. The beam landed on something, a shape between the trunks. Small, pale, unmoving. But when he blinked, it was gone. He stumbled forward, drawn by something deeper than fear. The path twisted, leading him to a clearing he didn't recognize. In the center stood a wooden cross, half collapsed and covered in moss. Something hung from it, a strip of old cloth, fluttering faintly in the breeze. Ethan's stomach turned as he approached. The cloth wasn't random. It was a piece of a child's shirt, the same pattern he'd seen in the photograph from the neighbor's envelope. He dropped to his knees, fingers trembling as he brushed away the dirt near the base of the cross. Beneath it, a rusted tin box jutted out of the soil. Inside were scraps of old photographs, all torn, burned, or soaked with rain. But one had survived. A picture of the house. And standing beside the maple tree, his father, holding a small boy's hand. Only, the boy wasn't Ethan. Before he could process it, a sound rippled through the clearing, a whisper that came from every direction at once. "Why did you leave me?" Ethan froze. The voice was trembling, sad, familiar. I didn't," he whispered. "Who are you?" The woods responded with a low hum, like the air itself was vibrating. Then, footsteps. Slow, dragging, circling him. He turned in every direction, but the beam of his flashlight only caught shadows shifting between trees. And then, behind him, a faint breath. He spun around. The beam flickered. For an instant, he saw a boy standing in the dark, pale, dirt-covered, his eyes black with emptiness. "Go back," the boy whispered, "before he wakes up." The light died. When Ethan's flashlight flickered back on, the clearing was empty. The cross had fallen, and the tin box was gone. He ran, tripping over roots, branches slapping his face, until his house came into view. The porch light glowed weakly, flickering like a heartbeat. As he stepped onto the porch, his phone buzzed. A new voicemail. No number. He pressed play. His own voice spoke back to him. "Don't go near the woods again." Ethan barely slept that night. The voicemail, his own voice warning him not to go near the woods, kept looping in his head. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that pale boy standing between the trees, whispering in the dark. By dawn, the storm had rolled in. Rain streaked down the window, painting thin rivers across the glass. He sat at the kitchen table, coffee gone cold, staring at the photograph he'd found, his father holding a boy who wasn't him. His father had always been a quiet man, stoic to the point of being unreadable. But now Ethan wondered what silence had been hiding. He needed answers. He started searching the house again. The drawers, the closets, the attic. Every creak of the floorboards felt like the house itself was breathing, watching. In the attic he found a trunk. It was old, the hinges rusted, the lock broken. Inside were newspaper clippings, black and white photographs, and a small box sealed with electrical tape. The tape peeled away in damp strips, revealing a folded letter inside. The handwriting made his chest tighten. It was his father's. "If you're reading this, it means you've gone where I told you never to go." The woods aren't what they seem. The boy you saw, he isn't gone. He was never supposed to exist. Ethan's pulse quickened. The paper was wrinkled, water-stained, but still legible. There were two of you, Ethan. You and your brother. I tried to protect you both, but only one came back from that place. They made me choose. And I chose wrong. The words blurred. He blinked hard, heart pounding. His brother? The grave in the woods wasn't real. It was a lie I buried to keep them from finding him again. But if the voice is calling you, it means the barrier is weakening. Whatever you do, don't open the ground beneath the maple tree. Ethan dropped the letter, breathing hard. The maple tree. The same one from the photograph. A gust of wind howled through the attic, slamming the window shut. He spun around. The shadows seemed to stretch and move. For a second, he thought he heard footsteps above him, though there was nowhere higher to go. He grabbed the letter and hurried downstairs, his mind spiraling. The house felt smaller now, claustrophobic. Every memory, birthdays, dinners, the smell of his father's coffee, felt tainted, rewritten. He sat at the table again, the letter shaking in his hands. His father's words echoed, "I chose wrong." What did that mean? Was the boy he saw in the woods his brother? And if so, which one of them was really Ethan? Before he could think further, there was a knock at the door, sharp, deliberate. He froze. No one ever came this far up the road. Slowly, he walked to the window and peeked out. Through the rain, he saw a figure standing at the edge of his porch, drenched, unmoving. In his hand, the stranger held a folded envelope, identical to the one Ethan had just opened. Ethan's heart stopped as lightning flashed. The man outside had his father's face. But his father had been dead for 15 years. The storm hadn't stopped. Thunder crawled across the sky like something alive. Ethan stood frozen by the window, staring at the man outside, the man who looked exactly like his father. He blinked. The porch was empty. The letter still trembled in his hand, wet from his sweat. He opened the door, rain lashing against his face, but there were no footprints on the wooden steps. No sign anyone had been there at all. Only the faint sound of dripping water, steady, rhythmic, like breathing. He shut the door and backed away, trying to slow his pulse. The house creaked in protest, as if straining under a weight it couldn't bear. That's when he noticed it. The hallway mirror, the one his father had hung years ago, had fogged up. A faint handprint was pressed against the glass from inside. Ethan stepped closer, his reflection warping in the dim light. His own eyes stared back, but the shape behind him, the figure's posture, the angle of its head, wasn't right. Turned. Nothing there. He looked back at the mirror. Now, his reflection was smiling. A slow, cold grin spread across the mirrored version of himself. His own face remained motionless, heart hammering as the reflection tilted its head. The fog cleared slightly, revealing words written in the condensation, just above the reflection's grin. "You shouldn't have read the letter." Ethan stumbled back, knocking over a chair. The air thickened, cold enough to sting. The reflection didn't mimic his movement anymore. It stayed still, watching him. And then it spoke. "You took what wasn't yours, Ethan." The voice was faint, warped, like an echo bouncing through water. He froze, every instinct screaming to run, but he couldn't. "Who are you?" His voice came out cracked, barely audible. The reflection tilted its head again. "You already know." A flicker of lightning burst outside, lighting up the hallway. For a split second, Ethan saw two reflections in the mirror, himself, and another boy standing beside him. The same pale boy from the woods. When the lightning faded, only Ethan's reflection remained. He grabbed the edge of the mirror, shaking. "What do you want from me?" The reflection's grin vanished. Its expression turned hollow, cold. To finish what he started. The mirror cracked down the middle with a sharp, violent snap. Ethan stumbled back, glass splintering onto the floor. Beneath the shards, something glimmered faintly, a piece of folded paper wedged behind the frame. He hesitated, then pulled it free. Another letter. The handwriting was his father's again, but older, shakier. "Then if you see him, the one in the mirror, it means the truth is almost awake. Don't let him out. If you do, neither of you will belong here anymore." The words made his stomach twist. "Neither of you." Another crack. The mirror split further, a jagged fissure spreading across it like a web. Behind the reflection, movement. A faint outline pressing forward, a hand emerging from the fractured glass, pale, trembling, identical to his own. Ethan backed away, tripping over a fallen chair as the glass shuddered. The reflection whispered one last thing before everything went dark. "You were never supposed to be the one who lived." When the lights flickered back on, the mirror was whole again. No cracks. No fog. But the reflection staring back wasn't Ethan anymore. It was smiling. The morning came heavy and gray, but Ethan hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the reflection's smile, the words burned into the fogged glass. "You shouldn't have read the letter." The house felt colder now, as if something had changed inside its walls. The air was still, listening. Watching. He sat at the kitchen table, the torn letter from his father spread out in front of him. The last line haunted him most. "If you see him, the truth is almost awake." But what truth? Ethan's eyes drifted toward the window. The rain had stopped. Beyond the backyard, the woods loomed, drenched in mist. And through that mist, he could see the faint outline of the old graveyard, the one behind the house where his father was buried. Something inside him pulled, an instinct stronger than fear. He grabbed his jacket and stepped outside. The grass was wet, squishing under his boots. The silence was unnatural. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of his footsteps. When he reached the graveyard, the air shifted. The headstones stood crooked, some leaning into the earth as if trying to disappear. Ethan's eyes found the one he'd visited so many times before, Thomas Ward, beloved father. He knelt beside it, brushing away the damp leaves. But then he noticed something. The soil next to it was disturbed. Fresh. A new grave. No name carved into the stone, no date. Just an unmarked mound of dirt, too recent to ignore. His stomach tightened. No one's supposed to be buried here. The words caught in his throat. The ground looked wrong, uneven, as if someone had tried to cover something quickly. Ethan stood and looked back toward the house. For a brief second, he thought he saw someone standing in the upstairs window, still watching him. He turned back to the mound. His hands shook as he brushed away some of the loose soil. The deeper he dug, the colder the dirt became. Then he hit something hard. A box. Small, metal, and rusted with age. Ethan pulled it out, heart racing. The lock was old, corroded, but when he touched it, it clicked open instantly, like it had been waiting for him. Inside were photographs. Old, black and white, edges curling with time. He held one up. It was his father, younger, standing in front of this same graveyard. But beside him was a child. Ethan's throat went dry. The boy looked exactly like him. He flipped through the photos, more of the same. Different years, different seasons, but always the same two faces. His father, and the boy who should have grown up to be him. But in the last photograph, there were two headstones behind them. Both names clear as day. Thomas Ward. Ethan Ward. Ethan's knees buckled. The date on the second headstone matched his birth year. And below it, his death date. The same day his father had died. He dropped the photo, breath shuddering. "No, I'm alive. I'm right here." But the sound that came from behind him froze his blood. The dirt on the new grave shifted. Something, or someone, was pushing from beneath. Ethan stumbled back, staring as the mound began to crack open. The smell of earth and rot filled the air. A pale hand broke through the soil. His hand. Same scars. Same ring. He couldn't move. Couldn't scream. The hand twitched, clawing at the ground until a face began to emerge. His own face. Eyes closed. Skin gray. A mirror image crawling out of the earth. Ethan fell backward, shaking, whispering, "It's not real. It's not real." But the thing opened its eyes. And in the reflection of those eyes, Ethan saw not fear, but relief. Then it spoke in his own voice. "You were never supposed to leave this place." Ethan turned to run, but when he looked toward the house, every window glowed faintly red. And from inside the glass, his reflection was still watching. Ethan ran until his lungs burned, stumbling through the rain-soaked woods, branches clawing at his clothes. Behind him, the whisper of his own voice still echoed, "You were never supposed to leave this place." When he finally stopped, the house was gone from sight. Only the faint orange glow from its windows pulsed between the trees like a dying heartbeat. His hands trembled, dirt still clung to his fingers, the same dirt that had covered him. He pressed his back against a tree, gasping, trying to think. "It wasn't real," he whispered. "It can't be real." But the photographs, the grave, the hand, all too vivid. The truth didn't feel like madness anymore. It felt like memory. He pulled the old photograph from his pocket, the one showing both gravestones. The ink had begun to smear from the rain, but the dates were still visible. His father's death. His own. The same day. Lightning flashed, and for an instant, he saw a figure standing among the trees, motionless, half-lit, watching. Ethan blinked, and it was gone. Then, faintly, he heard something else. A low, rhythmic scraping. Metal against stone. It came from the direction of the graveyard. His instincts screamed to run, but something stronger, the need for answers, turned him back. Step by step, he followed the sound until he reached the clearing. The air was still, the mist curling around the tombstones. The second grave was open now. Empty. A voice drifted from behind him. "Ethan." He turned sharply. The old neighbor, Mr. Clark, stood near the fence line, his flashlight flickering. His face looked pale, tired, as if he hadn't slept in years. "I told you not to dig," Clark said quietly. "You've brought it back." "What is it?" Ethan demanded. "What was buried there?" The man's expression darkened. "Not what? Your father tried to put an end to it. But every generation, it returns." Ethan shook his head. "You're not making sense." Clark took a hesitant step forward. "You died, Ethan. 20 years ago. The fire in this house, it took you both. But your father refused to let go. He made a bargain no one should make." Ethan's pulse pounded. "A bargain?" The old man nodded. "He begged for you to come back. But death doesn't give, it trades. It leaves you half here, half there, trapped between your last breath and your next." Ethan backed away. "That's impossible." Clark's voice trembled. "Then explain why I've buried you twice." Before Ethan could answer, the ground beneath his feet trembled. The open grave began to sink inward, collapsing like something was pulling it from below. The whispering started again, the same tone, same cadence, his own voice murmuring through the fog. "You were never supposed to leave." Clark dropped his flashlight, the beam rolled across the dirt. Ethan turned and saw the pale figure standing in the pit again, climbing out slowly, eyes glassy, movements deliberate. It was him, but this time, the face wasn't gray. It was burned, scarred, the way he would have looked if the fire had really happened. Ethan's mind fractured between panic and recognition. "No, that's not me." The other Ethan reached the edge of the grave, staring at him with hollow sorrow. "We've done this before," he said softly. "You always run. You always forget. Then you find me. And it begins again." Ethan's heartbeat thundered. "What are you talking about?" But the answer was already written in his mind, like a memory awakening. Flashes of smoke, his father's scream, the flames devouring the house. His hand on the doorknob. The sudden collapse. He had died. And every time he found the truth, the cycle began again. Digging, remembering, dying. Clark's flashlight went out. The world fell into blackness, save for one dim, red glow from the open grave. Ethan's reflection stepped closer. It's time to go home. And as the ground opened beneath him, Ethan understood this was not haunting. It was repetition. The death that never ended. Ethan woke in silence. No rain, no thunder, no wind. Just the sound of his own breathing echoing inside a space that didn't belong to any world he knew. The air smelled of dust and smoke. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on the cold floor of his childhood home, but it wasn't the same. The walls shimmered faintly, as though light was leaking through from another reality. He pushed himself up, disoriented. The photographs on the wall were gone. In their place hung only a single framed picture, one he'd never seen before. It showed his father standing beside a grave, his expression blank, lifeless. The headstone was cracked, the letters carved deep. Ethan Marsh, 1995 to 2003. Ethan's throat tightened. His pulse quickened. He stumbled back, shaking his head. No, that's not right. I'm alive. But then a whisper came from behind him, the same voice he'd heard in the woods, calm, steady, and heartbreakingly familiar. Alive doesn't mean the same thing for you. He turned and saw his father standing at the bottom of the stairs. His clothes were scorched, his face pale as ash, eyes glimmering like dying embers. You shouldn't have remembered, the man said softly. Every time you do, it starts again. Ethan's voice cracked. But why me? His father stepped closer, each footstep slow, echoing through the empty house. Because I couldn't let you go. I made a promise to bring you back. But when I did, I brought something else too. Ethan felt the floor vibrate beneath his feet. The same low hum that had haunted the house since the beginning began to rise again, deep and rhythmic, like a heartbeat buried beneath the earth. You weren't supposed to find the grave, his father continued. The more you dig, the more it takes. Your memories, your time, your soul. Ethan clenched his fists. Then tell me what's real. His father's eyes flickered. Real is what stays. And you never stay. The house trembled. The lights overhead flickered to red. Through the window, Ethan saw the graveyard, or what was left of it. Every headstone now bore the same name, Ethan Marsh. Dozens of them, stretching into the mist. He stumbled to the door, threw it open, but the outside world had folded into itself. The street, the forest, the sky, all blurred into an endless loop of shadow. No matter where he turned, he saw the same thing. His house, his grave, his reflection. Dad, please. But his father was gone. Only the whisper remained, circling him like a current. Every time you die, the world forgets. But your name doesn't. Your name remembers. The walls began to peel, layers of wallpaper revealing scrawled words underneath. His name, over and over, scratched deep into the plaster by desperate hands. He pressed his palms against his head, fighting the noise, the whisper, the weight of his existence repeating itself endlessly. No more! Ethan shouted. I don't want to come back. The whisper softened, almost kind. Then let go. Ethan dropped to his knees, breathing hard. Through the haze, he saw one of the gravestones outside crumble, revealing something beneath it, not bones, but light. A small, pulsing glow. It looked alive. He stepped outside, drawn toward it. The light reflected in his eyes, flickering like memory. Is this me? The whisper grew faint. What's left of you? He reached out, and for the first time, the air around him grew warm. The humming stopped. The endless loop fell silent. And then, for a fleeting second, Ethan felt something he hadn't in years. Peace. He closed his eyes, and the ground beneath him turned to dust. The gravestones dissolved, the names faded, the forest lifted into light. But just before everything vanished, one sound remained, the scratch of a pen across paper. Somewhere far away, someone was writing again. A new page. A new record. Ethan Marsh, found near his family home, October 27, 2025. And as the ink dried, a faint echo rippled through the empty world. A boy's voice, distant but calm. It always ends here, but the name never dies.